Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Pros Talk. I've got Jeanette Johnston from the Leeds Grenville Small Business Center. The longer names, I always... I'm still not used to this podcast thing or announcing. Yeah. Even Bruce, I'm surprised on the radio, he lets me go right off the cuff because I stumble so much. But people love to hear us.
That's
so
awesome.
Let's keep doing it, eh, Jeanette?
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So a little bit of background on the center, I guess, was where we should start because as we were chatting beforehand, I have a feeling we'll go down a few rabbit holes today.
Sure. So the Leeds Grenville Small Business Center has been around for over 20 years. The city of Brockville has held the contract through the province. So our main funding is provincial funding. And then we have some municipal funding and then some private funding for events usually. And our mandate is to support entrepreneurs in starting and growing purchasing businesses or even exiting businesses. And we generally work with small business as indicated in the name. So 10 employees or less. And we tend to work with people who have been in business less than 10 years. But we have worked with businesses that have been around longer as well. And
from my visual of, supporting the center and knowing you and knowing Wendy and Carol and everyone that gets involved, Karen, Kevin, all of them.
Yes.
You guys have turned into a little bit of a powerhouse incubator, in my opinion. That's my...
Oh, thank you.
A lot of rock stars in
absolutely.
The industry have come out. A lot of the professionals have come out of there now.
Yes.
That's got to be like a little award or a
feather in our cap.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because a lot of these people wouldn't have been in business or jumped on that ship because it's a risky ship.
Yep.
Without that tool to the starter program or the starter plus, whatever they went through.
Yes.
So does it feel good?
It does. It feels awesome. I love to see people succeed and come out of it and just run with the knowledge that we've given them through Kevin and Karen and ourselves at the center. And, do things that we may not even imagine that they would do, but we just knew they would do something great.
Do you find that you have, I haven't seen it, short of like the awards, which I think aren't as far as it, but do you do like a 1-year follow-up?
Yes.
Do you do like a luncheon to see these guys?
Luncheon depends on our budget.
Yeah.
And what we have left.
How many times are you going to say that today?
Yeah. But we definitely do check-ins. I'm actually working on stats from people who were in the program in 2015, 2016.
Oh, wow.
So because we're a small community, we know people, I'm able to pick up the phone and say, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? And so I've been doing lots of that since December so that I can gather data and share that with whoever
Only
wants
have
to
call
know.
The ones you don't bump into when you're out shopping for your groceries.
Right.
That's what I find. That's where I see most of my clients.
Right.
Because you're right, with the small community. But I mean, that would be, I think, essential for one, because I know the hurdles and the backstory of you battling the budget and the funding and the stresses of it being cut and stretched and everything else. But to come back and say we're hitting this out of the park has to have some weight when you're talking budget, when you're talking upper tier.
Yeah. Well, we try to make it hold some weight.
Yeah. Well, it holds weight. We say no. You've heard it here. No, so doing the check-ins, because I mean we talked about a few people ahead of time and in the construction industry, the health and safety people that I work with, they've all come out of the program, and I don't think they would have been in business without the program.
Yeah. It's the program, what it does, what Starter Company and Starter Company Plus do is help create that foundation that businesses need to be solid and to become profitable and to be able to grow. So, when you think about a foundation, like in architecture, you have to have the 4 corners and the 4 walls all have to be solid and they have to be placed properly and built properly. And that's essentially what we're doing with Starter Company and Starter Company Plus is we've helped build that foundation for people, giving them a little bit of a cash influx to pay for things that they normally wouldn't have been able to afford, and then some business coaching on top of that. So it's been a really great program to get people started.
So you must see the full transition just because how long's the program?
6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
You must see no confidence to full confidence.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I know, like, even if I get a little glass of Kevin Savoy juice,
Yeah.
I feel like I can conquer the world. So 6 months of coaching and Karen's advice and your guys' advice on top of that, like the staff outside of the consultants.
Yeah.
In 6 months, it's got to be like a total transition.
Yeah, we see the difference from the beginning to the end and what they know, and they're so appreciative of the knowledge that they've gained from the program, and it's free. So, that's an even bigger bonus.
And then a little bit of money at the end, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not, we're not talking huge. I think the value out of the program as an outsider, again, is the confidence.
Yes.
Right? Because, I mean, to quit your job and to start anew with no guaranteed paycheck, especially in today's world, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, that's hard.
It is hard.
Because you may not feed your family.
Right.
And, I mean, your wife might get angry.
Right.
We've
had some of those situations. We're actually, for the next contract with the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, we are looking at opening up some of the rules a bit and being a bit more softer, because we're finding it even more difficult to find people who are willing to make that full jump from, part-time or no business to full-time in their business, because financially they can't do it. Yeah. With COVID, it has put a lot of people behind. So we're going to see if we can soften up those rules a bit, and it would be people working part-time in their business with the aim of going into their business full-time in the next 6 months.
A 6 month, or I was going to say a 1 year contract to make a full leap.
Correct.
So who sets those rules, though?
We can.
Okay.
Yes.
So you guys have to set the regulations.
Every 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had done our business plan 3 years ago. It was pretty strict. You had to be in business full-time.
I remember that. It was right before COVID. You were doing...
Yeah, in 2019 was our last budget. So this time we're going to see if we can be a bit more lenient. And
so with you going lenient and possibly dragging more people, into that net, is capacity there? Like, are you guys able to handle more than...
No, I would say we're either going to have the same number of seats or maybe even a little bit less. But it just allows those people who have the potential, and we'll be able to see that in our interview process, to jump into the program. And it just allows us to pick those people that we see a lot of potential in, that are ready, in the next 6 months or a year.
And are you seeing like the same level of applicants pre-COVID and now? Like, were you still getting too many applicants? It's never too many, I know, but were you getting enough of a pool to then pull the
We were noticing actually a drop in applicants. And I think part of that was because people weren't ready to go full-time into their businesses, and COVID. And the fall program, the fall cohort that we run, is usually underutilized, because people are coming out of summer and they're not paying attention to our marketing, and they're not seeing
Everyone
what's
goes
going
outside
on.
Rather than sitting on Facebook. 100%.
So we only had 5 participants in last fall's cohort, and then we have 10 in this one. So, I would like to balance it out a bit more. So we're hoping the leniency will help, and then also we might shift when we deliver the fall cohort a bit as well.
Yeah, because a couple things come to mind. It's hard when you're battling a budget. You can't go out and get another Jeanette and another Carol, because you're already stretching your budget to begin with. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the things that I hope to see coming out of COVID is these government programs to bring our economy back have to increase.
Right.
Like your guys' budgets, the EEC's budgets, all these places have to increase.
Right.
We have to make that ability comfortable for someone to quit a decent minimum wage job that they're possibly treated fairly and happy and everything else, but make a leap to a less secure golden path.
Right.
Because entrepreneurship, it's not for everyone. Mm-hmm. That's why you do the interview process, I'm sure.
Right.
You get those ones that you're like, you are not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know I had a few. It's funny because I haven't talked about it yet, but I had a few people that reached out through the Approved Professional program about the SEBA loan.
Oh, yes.
And I've gotten to know a lot of our members.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there was 2 in particular, no names, 2 in particular that I literally had to say, I'm putting my friend hat on. You should not have $60,000.
Right.
It was just
good for you, Dave.
But they don't budget properly. They
Right.
have no plan. They're always
Flying by the seat of their pants.
or buying personal.
Right.
Just not like I've got, I don't know, 20 debit cards in my wallet.
Right.
Every company has its own money. They
Right.
don't cross the lines.
Right.
Not $1 gets shared. If I have 3 items
Right.
for 3 companies,
You'll
I use
pay for
3
them separately.
different debit cards. You have to.
Right.
But to be given $60,000 with a now 4 or 5 year payback plan
Yes. Oh yeah. I'll
To
pay
the
that
gover-
later. I'll
to
worry
the
about
government.
that later. Yeah.
I'm just looking at them going, no.
Yeah.
Like it's almost go back to college when you're going down that hallway in Capital One, sitting there going, we have a T-shirt for you.
Right.
You don't sign up for that T-shirt.
Right.
So there was a few that I saw that like that. So that's what the
Right.
interview process is
Yes,
for, right?
absolutely.
To say you've got a chance, you're crazy. So
Yeah.
yes, you can be an entrepreneur. You're too reserved. Keep working.
Right. Right.
Take that 55 pension.
Right. Or the idea just isn't an idea that's going to
True.
work.
Yeah, I guess that's the whole other thing is you get somebody
Yeah.
that comes out and says, I don't know, they're going to spray grass through the winter.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. So that's good. So how many are in the group right now?
There's 10
Yeah.
in Karen McDonald Hurley's business plan boot camp right now. And they're fabulous. Karen loves them. They're an
Yeah, I
amazing
watched
group of
one of
people.
Carol's videos the other day where they're kind
Okay.
of the Zoom and they were all talking and Karen and Kevin were doing their thing and,
Yeah.
and mojoing it up.
Yeah.
I think those
That's
two are
for the
great.
recovery program. So last year, the ministry, actually I think it was a different ministry, but the provincial government gave each of the small business centers a chunk of money and said help people who were affected by COVID. So we were using the last of that money up and we're running a recovery session. So that's businesses that have been affected either positively or negatively by COVID, and they need to kind of relook at their cash flow and relook at how they deliver their product or service, what they might need to change. Karen helps them set up that piece, and then Kevin does the coaching for the next 90 days. So they're just starting that today. Plus, we're in the middle of Starter Company Plus as well. So we're running a couple of different things at the same time.
Which is great because I have to ask, knowing the company, how are you doing in the transition to your role?
As manager?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going through that, here's all these octopus arms of
Yeah.
Jeanette going around and juggling, and I'm hitting you with stats right into the gates. And I know you're able. I've done the interview. You're capable. But how's it going? I mean, you had big shoes to fill after Wendy left.
Absolutely.
I know you were eger to
Yeah.
fill those shoes, and
Absolutely.
you love it.
Yeah.
I mean, if anyone just listening in the first 5 minutes, they can tell you love what you're doing.
Yes.
How's it been going?
It's really been interesting. I really miss Wendy, in our day-to-day interactions with each other because we got along so well.
Yeah.
But it's going really well with Carol and myself. And we have Arlene LeBerge part-time as well. She's running our women's entrepreneurship program.
Super.
And it ends March 31st. So Arlene's contract is up at the end of March. But
So
it's
she was just for that program?
correct.
Okay.
Working a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Carol and I are there full time. And, I haven't had a lot of time to make a lot of changes. It's only been since May. And things are going to change again because the city's contract for the center is moving to the county.
Yeah.
So as of April 1st, we will not be employees of the city anymore. We'll be employees of the county. And so we're just working on the budget piece of that and what that's going to look like after April 1st. So I haven't had a lot of time to do, the things that I imagined that I would be able to do, but what I have been able to accomplish, I'm happy with.
So I think that's a win because when I hear people talk that way, that means that like you're not going to just check out or you're mentally exhausted from it and you've accomplished and everything's the way you assumed. I like that realm of mystery almost, right? Like you've almost got too much to do and not enough time.
Oh,
means
yeah.
you're not going to get bored.
Right.
But then you have
Absolutely.
ambitions to make some changes, which
Yes.
means you need time to implement, which means you're not going to get bored again.
Yes.
So
one of the things that I'm excited about that we're doing, every March we do our International Women's Day
absolutely.
event.
Yep.
And we're inviting men.
Oh,
We
good.
want men to attend. So that's going to be put on all the marketing, and we want
think-
men to come and celebrate with women. And
I think it's one of those things that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I think that's awesome. I think it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And because anytime, Natasha or I accomplish something, we do want each other to be there.
right.
So to celebrate International Women's Day with 50% of the population just making a Facebook post to support it,
Right.
rather than going and clapping in person,
Right.
hopefully.
No, I'm sorry. It's online.
Jeanette.
Sorry, Dave.
Cancel the podcast.
We couldn't do it. We couldn't do it.
No, we're in the same boat. We shifted I guessed the dates
Right.
With our premiere and moved the trade show as well.
Yeah.
We were able to run the trade show on the dates in February that we wanted.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it would have been a little tricky. And of course, the boogeyman of just being released from Ford jail would have been there.
Right.
So why not give people a month for
Right.
the dust to settle? We'll be
Yeah.
in the second phase.
Right. And would still be in the first phase because our event's March 8th.
right.
So it was just too soon to try and organize, and it takes a lot for just the two of us, doing all of the other things that we're doing,
Yeah.
to have to shift gears again. So it was easier just to start right from the very beginning.
Yeah, we talked
to
about
online.
just saying no, like caving in. But
Right.
my persistence and resilience kicked in and said, no, that means they win.
Right. Right.
And I had the last trade show before COVID.
yes.
I remember we had 2 booths cancel because this thing was
Right.
coming. And I didn't even know what it was when I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Is it a cold?
Right.
Like, what is it? So we had 2 booths, no show, and thinner crowds.
Right.
But we had it. So I definitely want to be the first.
And our International Women's Day in 2020 was the Tuesday before the lockdown on the Friday.
Yeah.
So we were like hot and heavy. We were like, our brains were in it. We were at the country club.
It was so unknown.
We were like, oh, I don't know, there's something going on, but I don't really, we're busy.
Yeah.
So we delivered, and we had over 100 women at the country club. It was a fabulous event, went really well. And then
Yeah.
Friday we were locked down and we were sent home. And we're like,
It's amazing
Okay.
that we're talking about events where it was literally on the cusp of a lockdown and nobody knew what it was.
right.
But if you and I went right now to the superstore and coughed aloud,
Yes.
it would just go. And Natasha the other day, she coughed in the superstore and she's like, oh, it's so dry in here. She's just trying to calm the panic. And I was like, nobody cares.
There was a lady who I walked by this weekend, wherever I was. I think I was at the superstore, and she had forgotten to put on her mask. And she was very apologetic. And I said, it's okay. I'm not going to tell anybody. She was digging out her mask from her purse.
I'll admit, I've been one of the bad ones that I get to the carts leaving, and I'll take my mask off about at the cigar store, and I get some strange looks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the doors are already open for my motion.
Right.
Like, I'm a big dude. I get hot, and I'm smothering myself.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's coming off.
I wear a shield because I'm
Yeah.
claustrophobic. And I get like 2 and 3 times looks because people aren't used to seeing someone's whole face.
Well, Jacqueline, we both know, wears the chin one.
Right.
And she gets a lot of looks.
Yeah.
She sometimes has to switch because she's getting so many looks. Like I think she told me the other day that I caved and wore a regular mask because she was
Right.
going somewhere where it was just people would have been like, oh, I can
Right.
see your face. It's like it's a bad game of peekaboo almost
Right.
now. It's
I
crazy.
just give people big smiles and then.
Well, again, I find myself all the time. I call myself an idiot because I still like smile and nod, and I'm like, this is what they saw. They didn't even see me. Or little
Right.
kids in carts, I try to do like a ha, and I'm like, oh, I just said ha ha with my mouth covered. Like they saw nothing but this creepy guy who just
Right.
going, "Rawr." Big giant guy scaring these babies. It's weird, but I mean, I was just speaking to Bruce, and I told him that with Bell Let's Talk Day coming up,
Yes.
he was like mental health, and we talked a little bit about entrepreneurs, the stresses that we've went on.
Yes.
Which again, maybe the decline with the application is people like you've had a lot of caterers, like tasty indulgences.
Yep.
who the heck's pitching one of those right now?
Yeah.
Because it's unknown.
Yeah, there's a lot of businesses who are like thriving, like there's no tomorrow in this economy. Construction.
Yeah.
And then there's other businesses like catering or gyms. Like, I just feel so badly for our gyms. And we worked with a lot of gyms over the last couple of years. And I'm constantly sending them emails. You guys okay?
We almost opened a gym. We were talking about it. Planet Fitness was on its way in.
Okay.
And we were talking because my one daughter's going into, fitness and massage. And I do want to better myself. I've always wanted to. I haven't been able to with 2 years because I've been doing advocacy and construction went through the roof.
Right.
But I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
Again, the CFIB released on the weekend that with Toronto being the worst sector, holds the most power in our elections, and it's the worst through COVID. But anyway, January 31st will mark 437 days of full lockdowns for restaurants.
Wow. So
I worked it out on my interview this morning. That's if they got the $60,000.
Yep.
That's $130 a day they were given to survive.
Right.
And still pay heat and hydro, rent.
Right. That's not.
It's not enough.
No.
And I guarantee they're making more $100. As a business coach, I'm sure you want them to make more than $100 a day.
Why are you in business if you're not making more than $100 a day?
But that's what it works out to be. The 60,000 CEBA, which is a loan.
Right.
Right. So really only 40. I should have done the number on 40. $137, but 437 days of lockdown for Toronto restaurants and gyms.
Right.
And the current category.
Yeah. That's a pretty interesting number.
That's over a year.
Yeah.
That's a year and 100 days. Mm-hmm. I don't even, they must just be holding on with fingernails.
Right. And then you have exceptions to those rules, like George at Thousand Islands Pizza, who didn't, nothing changed for them. In fact, they got busier.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to get a hold of Thousand Islands Pizza after 4:30.
But flip side, you get the Keystorm, who decided not even to open.
Right.
This round because it's too hard with food orders.
Right.
Luna Pizzeria, same thing. Not loving this situation.
No, they don't.
I know they're not. But steady.
Yeah.
Right. But can't get staff is the next issue.
Yeah,
right.
That's our other issue here and all across
Everywhere.
Canada.
Yeah.
It's even like in Victoria. I have my sister-in-law lives in Victoria, and she was saying that even there they're paying $35 an hour to wash dishes, and they still can't find people. But I mean, look how much it costs.
We heard that in the construction industry. As much as construction has went on fire, I know the first year of COVID, there was a local company in Kemptville that I don't want to say poached, but I'm going to use that term. They cranked their wage up,
right?
Seeing the shortage coming, to steal from everyone else. Exactly. They won the game, right? It's always like one of those things. If we were the ones that invented gasoline and cars, we wouldn't be complaining. That's right. But because we're the ones paying for them, we are complaining.
Right.
But they grabbed something like 12 carpenters. And they were okay through this.
Right.
But the ones looking for those carpenters now, and I know the EEC, their job board is just, it's a Rolodex now. It's pick what you want. 401 Electric has tried to radio campaign immigrate people in from St. Lucia. They're looking that far.
Wow.
Like Brockville to St. Lucia.
Right. With all that snow.
And minus 30 this morning.
Let's attract people
Come
from
to
St.
Brockville.
Lucia.
Living on the river is great. Our cars don't start. I was telling Bruce this morning, my new truck, I didn't move it yesterday. I just had an at-home day. Football, as I said. I fired it up this morning, and I was like, oh, great. But it wasn't warming fully. And I was like, oh, shoot, 2 days of just sitting stagnant. Then I started driving, and I felt like it was the first truck ever invented. The shocks were stiff. Everything was stiff. The tires were stiff. And it was just like the first kilometer before it finally said, oh, I'm alive. It was bad. How do you attract somebody to live like that? And we're going up to -7.
I have an 18-year-old Toyota that I drive, and I never have any problem getting it started. And I have a friend who has a brand new Honda. And she had the same problem that you did.
It just got all stiff.
And I'm like, it's all right. I didn't have any problems.
Well, I never said newer is better. We're definitely forgetting that we live in this, like the Teslas and stuff I've seen with this touch handle.
Oh, yes.
And it ices over.
Okay.
I'm like, it was invented in California, people.
Right.
Like, they don't have this issue.
Right.
But Bruce Wiley this morning, I gave him shit. I was like, there's only one person to blame for these 20 degrees, and it's the weatherman.
Right.
And I said, until you stop this. And he goes, well, don't tune in for the rest of the week.
Right.
But we both have relatives out west, and they just had a warming spree. So that
Okay.
means we're about 4 to 6 weeks. Normally it'll make its way here.
Yes, this week should be our last really cold
I hope
spell.
so, because it's crazy.
Yeah.
And especially like Theo and I were talking, like this 20-degree jump for us that get up at 6:30 in the morning. Like my thermostat on the truck this morning said minus 34.
Yes.
But by the time Natasha gets up, it'll be minus 15.
Right.
I'm like, that's not fair. She missed some key Canadian climate here.
Right. Right.
So that's great. So coming back to your new role, Carol's new role, where does the center go as we exit, as we plan to exit? We're not exiting. As we, I said to somebody the other day, I was like, it's Groundhog Day in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
2
we're
weeks.
going into year 3 of another 3-step plan.
Right.
Is year 3 the year? Is everything in
what?
threes?
They did say at the very beginning of COVID, there would be 4 waves, and it was the same as 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah.
So we should be done.
But if they knew that, they should have planned on it. So
Anyway.
Yeah. That was a big rabbit hole almost with Dave. Because I'll tell you, I'm looking back at my Facebook posts and my rants and my post, and I'm like, it's still, like I said, I'm talking to Bruce Wiley this morning on the radio about the same stuff I did 2 years ago.
Right.
Like, it's just, and almost on key.
Right.
So where does the center go as we plan to exit? Like what's to come?
We were notified in December from the ministry of our funding. So what we would get as of April 1st. Okay. And MPP Clark was, he helped us out a lot to make sure that we didn't get a decrease again like we did in 2019. And we didn't. So you look much happier than you did that year. So we have the same amount of funding as we had the previous 3 years. So what that really means is a decrease because of inflation. So we are having to alter the way we deliver some of our programs. And because we're moving to the county, things are changing in terms of salary and benefits and all of that kind of stuff. So
it would be a total infrastructure shift, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Like a clean slate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a shame.
We're trying to, our goal will be to maintain the programs and events and workshops that we have, but I don't know that we will be able to totally achieve that.
So is that kind of a win and a loss? Are you getting a chance to retool something that people expect, but because you know how you rebrand something, do you now have a chance to tinker a bit and make some of it your own and know there's going to be some stuff that you're going to lose?
So when with the contract being with the city, it is sat pretty independently. And with the contract moving to the county, we're going to be actually moving right in with economic development. So
and physically?
Well, we don't know about physically yet, but financially, we're moving under the economic development because the county, of course, serves most of the county or all of the county. And we
you guys do too.
Most of the county.
Yeah.
There's a small chunk in the northwest corner that Smith Falls serves of Leeds County. So it makes sense. There's going to be a lot of synergies and so on. So we'll be working really closely with the Economic Development Department and Ann Weir, who's the manager, going forward. So I'm not really sure what all of that's going to look like yet. We're still talking, and right now we're just working on a business plan with the ministry, getting that done, and then we can sit down and look and see at what everything is going to look like.
I heard about a lot of this early, and I work with Ann obviously through COVID a lot with the task force. Once she stops picking the same days as every other meeting I have. I think I've missed the last 2. But I think it's going to be a good thing. Because, again, it always mind-boggled me when you were kind of under city budget, under city wing, but you guys do ton in Kempville.
Right.
And Prescott.
Right. Yeah.
And almost more in those two than you do Brockville from an external view.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah,
We always advertise where we're going more than where we live.
Right. So 20 years ago when this started, it was a computer monitor and a desk. It was a help desk.
Yeah.
And then people could come in and use the computer and use the internet because not everybody had that, right? And that was Dave Paul and Tom Russell's project. And then Bob Runciman came in and helped. And so that's kind of how all of that came into effect. And then it became a center and they hired a manager, and there's been a few managers. But Wendy, in her time with the center for the last 16 years, she spent a lot of time working out, like expanding the services outside of Brockville, because they were really pretty Brockville centric. But there wasn't anybody serving those people,
right?
You know, in Kempville, Prescott, Gananoque. So she worked really hard, and I worked with her for the last 7 years on that. And so because we are spread out so far into the county, it makes total sense for us to be working with the county so that we can take advantage of each other's programs and connections and
everything.
Networking. Yeah. So it's the right move. A change is always difficult and stressful, and but we're working through it, and I've enjoyed working with Anne in the past. So
yeah, I think I'm like again, as a spectator, I'm curious to see where it goes.
Right.
I agree and disagree with Anne on things and
right.
with everyone on things. We all do.
Right.
But I'm a big proponent of change.
Right.
Or like you say, that rethinking. I think
right.
I've said it umpteen million times throughout COVID with small business. If they haven't taken this opportunity to find the little things that have been speed bumping them for years,
right.
this is the perfect pause
right.
to fix.
Right.
I've overhauled 2 or 3 times, I think.
Right.
And just to make things smooth, because when we come out of this, and we will come out of this, when we come out of this, I think Kevin said it, it's you've got to be gassed up and ready to go, because it's going to take off.
Absolutely.
Especially after 3 years, people pinned down and not going out, not going to theater. We're going to talk about not going to restaurants. Right. I'm itching to go out for dinner.
Yeah.
I caught myself the other day. We were working so hard, and I remember Nat wasn't even home yet, and I was like, I'm going to book us a little getaway to Ottawa. Just go to the Keg, go to a hotel. And I'm like, oh,
can't do that.
Can't go out for dinner. And I'm like, and I think it's weird. And again, with the football people, they're all talking. Like, we just watched games with 65,000 people with no masks just across the river.
Right.
And I'm like, what's wrong with our air?
Right.
I can't go out to dinner.
Right.
I have to show a vaccine passport to go get groceries. It's crazy. But I caught myself. I was like, well.
Did you hear that Quebec is really chomping down on non-vaccinated? They're like, even to go into a box store, you're going to have to show a vaccine.
Well, if anyone... jumping right into the COVID thing, because that's a good segue. If anyone hasn't Googled what social credit system is, and you got 2 hours to scare the living tar out of yourself, look into it.
There's some people who have left the country because of what's been happening.
Brock Frost was on. He is in Argentina, or no, he's at the South Pole right now.
Okay.
Like, he just said he's not coming back till it's done. He's a broker. Selling properties, buying properties. He can do it from a laptop, and he is sending me all kinds of, thank you, Brock, ugly muscle shirt, jealous photos as he's enjoying all these places.
Yeah.
And hats off to him. I wish I could.
Yeah.
And he just got hip. He always says, if you want to do it, you do it. If you don't do it, it's because you don't really want to do it. So
there you go.
He'll come back at me on that one. But the social credit system, the news never used to cover cryptocurrency.
Right.
It is now.
Okay.
Because it falls right into social credit system.
Right.
If they're going to say Jeanette and Dave were bad for talking on a podcast, and seize our assets and seize our credibility, well, cryptocurrency is kind of the route to go, because if I have $100 in my pocket, I can still buy a meal.
Right.
If it's all crypt, we can't.
Okay.
So it's really scary when we go down that slope. And I know the Dutch and Austrians have experienced this before and are very afraid of it. But it's well worth every person, I think, looking into to see what's available. And, this is coming from a federal level, not a provincial level. So it's not, before people get confused and they're like, oh, Doug Ford's putting us in a social credit system. No, it would have to come from the federal government. But it's weird because in my industry, we're seeing progression. Like the Ministry of Housing is progressing in a way that is less intrusive.
Right.
And it's hard when you hear a government's moving to a intrusive, but yet small branches of it are moving the other way. So it's like this horrible time. If you are a conspiracy theorist, you must just be running like trying to find a corner in a circle room.
Right.
You must just be going crazy because it's all there to feed your panic.
Yeah.
But as a realist and a logical guy, which I think I am still, I'm starting to become a conspiracy theorist.
Right. Yeah, you could definitely go down that rabbit hole in an instant. And I try to kind of keep perspective. And I was speaking with a friend because she was like really overwhelmed by something, and it had to do with COVID. And, what am I going to do? And, what's going to happen? And I'm like, you know what? We just have to look at every day and say, this is what I have to get done. This is who I need to talk to. These are the goals that I've set for myself if I'm a business owner, and I try to get them done that day. And whatever doesn't get done, then you move it on to the next day. And you try not to think too far ahead. You have to do some planning as a business owner, but you try not to, get swallowed up in all of the media and the negative information, and do what's right for you in the parameters that you have to do them in every day. And I think if we can keep focused on that and not go down those rabbit holes that we can be pulled down, then I think we'll be better off.
You said you weren't on social media, so you didn't see this. But the other day, when the food shortage nonsense started,
oh yes,
I call it the great toilet paper of 2022.
Right.
But I got like 3 or 4 messages from people saying the superstore was empty.
Yeah, I was in last Monday, and the shelves were bearish.
Well, this was on Wednesday.
Okay.
And I'm like, no. So my daughter's worked there for years, and I know Monday night the shipment comes in.
Right.
So sure, they might have been a little light Monday.
Sure.
But maybe people are shopping on Mondays now. I don't know.
Right.
I know a lot of us avoid like rush hours at this.
Absolutely.
Because it's insane.
Yeah.
So I literally got photos.
Right.
Tagged on Facebook. And so here's an architect has to take time out of his day in the middle of the day to drive over to the superstore.
Right.
And it was stocked.
Okay. So by Wednesday it had been restocked.
But the photos were apparently current.
Okay.
At Brockville Walmart and Brockville Superstore.
Okay.
And I drove over, and they're fine. So I had to make a post that literally said, stop the fear tactics.
Right.
Like, stop sharing photos that you do not know were taken.
Right.
They're probably from Moosonee.
Right.
Like, who knows? All the Walmarts and Superstores look the same.
Right.
Nobody could tell if it was Brockville's store.
Right.
Unless that one person was in the picture.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it, and I thought, there's not a lot of stuff, but there's still stuff. There's just maybe not the stuff I was exactly looking for. And I thought, okay, well, I'll get something different. So I just got something different.
Well, and I think the panic, too, like the big thing is, like you said, what do we need to get accomplished today can also apply to what do you actually need to buy today?
Right.
Because that was the toilet paper. I mean, I bet you there's people out there that haven't bought toilet paper since that whole fiasco. And if they have, you have other issues.
Their whole basement workshop is filled with toilet paper.
Yeah, they're like, does our basement feel warmer this winter? Well, yeah, it's insulated with 300 rolls of toilet paper. And it's one of those things that I think people just get that fear panic. Those ones that are sitting there scrolling like zombies all day on social media get this abundance of false information and then start hoarding their shopping, which is really like, who needs 700 pounds of beef?
Right.
Rick and Tanya might say everyone does.
Right.
But it's, who doesn't?
Right.
And I was happy to see that the butcher shop did make a post that they're fine.
Right.
Right? Like,
that's good.
Buy from us.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think they did a price comparison as well.
Right.
And I talked to the meat department. And he's like, no, we got lots. He's like, we were just slow getting it out on Tuesday.
Right, because the trucks are getting slowed down because of COVID.
Well, I don't think anyone's going for a trip to Ottawa this weekend.
No.
I can't picture, they're saying something like 36,000 trucks now on their way.
Right.
And how... There's going to be nobody in the Rideau Center.
Right.
I mean, those trucks are going to clog this place. But that supply chain, like small business, it's that greasy wheel. We have to keep it rocking and rolling.
Right.
So doing that mandate of tasks that you must get done to get through it, I think was great advice to your friend. Mm-hmm. For me, I've told a lot of people up to this point it's a mandate at this point that, Canada's always known for being the nice ones, to share our beer and dodge hockey pucks while we live in igloos, I think is the faux pas of it all. We've done our part. We've done what we've told, and everyone's following suit. But at the end of the day, we have to be able to pay the government because they're the ones with the handcuffs on us at 42% of the dollar that we make. Mm-hmm. And businesses have to keep up with that.
Right.
So as long as we're not following, the ones I'm afraid of are the ones falling behind on their HSTs, their income taxes.
Absolutely.
And SEBA scares the living tar out of me.
Right.
I think the second they announced it, I was all over Michael that this has to be a grant. You cannot loan people, because only 2 people I knew shouldn't have got it.
Right.
One did still go get it.
Okay.
Hasn't paid it back. Wasn't ready for this year. Now they've changed it to 2 years.
They've extended
it. Which, how do you change a contract without my signature?
Yeah, I know for the CDCs, their regional relief fund, they're changing the contracts. So they don't have as many clients as the banks do, but they'll go back and edit each contract and have the client sign the new contract. So I know that's what they're doing. I don't know how the banks are going to treat it.
Well, somebody has to sign something, because I know. but that's my fear with businesses is falling behind with the wrong people. It's one thing to owe Rogers or NetFox your internet bill, right? But owing the government, that can catch up with you quick.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if any of the loans end up getting forgiven in the end.
They have to. And that's one of the, I know you've heard, I've beaten it through a rug. I've been saying it for 3 years. SEBA must be a grant.
Yeah.
And it's teetering now on the what's fair. Like, I understand construction and architecture hasn't been shut down for 437 days. Yep. Most of those restaurants didn't get SEBA.
Right.
Because they didn't see a loss enough to apply for it. Right. So they got the Ontario Small Business Grant?
Yes, correct.
Which was extended as well. They got another 10,000. So they're at possibly 50,000. So 50 and 60 is pretty relatable. So how come Ontario is granting their money, but the feds can't?
Right.
And just a little dig, since you're not on social media, he just gave $120 million to Ukraine, but can't bail out his own businesses.
Right.
That's a lot of money. $60,000. Like, you wouldn't run the starter program if you said we'll give you $60,000 as a loan, and you would have no applicant. Like, it would be so hard to vet people to responsibly pay that back, and you owe it to the government. Like, it's somebody be daring and not pay your HST for 2 years. Tell me how many brown envelopes you get and how many phone calls you get and what kind of interest you're paying. Right. It's suicidal for a business. It really is. So that's my big fear with it, is that people just are not being accountable. Good bookkeeping is one of the... We had... it's coming out in middle of February. I had the Young Farts RV Parts. They were on Dragon's Den. All 5 dragons bid on this company, these 2 young guys. So they reached out. We did a podcast episode. I'm talking to Jagger, the older brother, and he says to me, these are very funny, young, inexperienced kids. Who knew a bookkeeper would be so important? Do you know a good one? He's going through due diligence with Michelle, and he's never had a bookkeeper.
Wow.
And he says to me, he says, I barely made it through high school. His brother didn't, and they both hate math.
That's the first thing we tell people when we do a consultation with them. You know, you might do your own bookkeeping for the first 6 months, but you really got to pass that off because it's probably not why you're getting into business. You're probably not good at it.
You know, Dave still does his own.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, my advice to you, Dave, is to hire yourself a bookkeeper.
I'm a special breed. We all know that, but I'm very very logic, very karma logic.
Right.
I believe in karma. If your gut's telling you,
right,
I just walk away.
Right.
It could be a
but you
$1
can
million on a sidewalk, and I say
you can still do all of that and have somebody else enter in all.
I
of
like
the
to
data.
know the numbers, though.
Yeah.
So
what they should be doing is at the end of each month they should be giving you a report. Here's what came in. Here's what went out.
I agree, and I bet you the day's closer than what it used to be that
Right.
I will go down that route.
Right.
But again, I think we've both seen entrepreneurs that must have a bookkeeper,
Right.
must have a part-time bookkeeper,
Right.
and then the ones that just don't need it.
Right. Oh, absolutely. There's always exceptions.
Dan
to every
Beatty still
rules.
does his own, I think, too.
Yeah.
Like he runs a pretty big outfit.
Right.
And he calls and we both call and have QuickBook talks because we've screwed something up.
And there's that balance between knowing when your time can be better spent doing or earning, X and whatever you make per hour, and spending $40, $60 an hour for a bookkeeper. You're going to know when that time is right for you.
And I think as we become, and I've said to Natasha, my game plan is in the next 4 to 5 years to probably start slowing down,
right,
and just try to enjoy life. I think that exit, as I pass the torch to my son,
mm-hmm.
To the family members, to the executive that are going to take over the approved professionals,
right,
that'll be the time.
Right.
Because obviously somebody that runs the business, advocates for the business, designs house plans, and does the books,
mm-hmm.
probably not going to find that candidate.
No.
Yeah, they broke the mold.
Right.
But for me, it's, weekly I go through those reports.
Right.
Weekly I can tell you what my numbers are.
Right.
I can tell you what's working, what's not.
You sound like my husband.
It's
He knows exactly what's going on financially in his business. Yeah.
And I think that's, if you find the right bookkeeper, I'm not knocking bookkeepers and accountants. Like my accountant is a gem. I never want to lose her. We get along. We understand each other. I hand over what I hand over, and that's it. But some people, like your husband and I, that probably makes us
He doesn't do his own bookkeeping.
No, but as long as he knows that level of number,
yeah.
Like how can you make a decision to buy a new microphone without knowing the ins and outs of it?
Right. Absolutely.
Like how many people would hear 437 days closed and do the math to see how much money that was?
Right.
I had to.
Different perspective.
Yeah.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
And I did the math clear as day. I didn't even take off taxes.
Right.
That
was just a basic.
Just taking a number and dividing it by the other. So it's weird. So I guess on that same topic, like you guys in the program, you bring in professionals to, like, do you bring in someone to talk the importance of books, or do you leave that to the coaches like Karen and yourselves and Kevin?
Yeah. We cover it in an initial consult. We talk about bookkeeping as people are getting started. And then if Karen's doing the business plan boot camp, then she talks about cash flow, because you come out of the program with a 2-year cash flow. And so we talk about cash flow in general, not about bookkeeping specifically. And then when Kevin does his coaching, then there is, what your, oh gosh, the term just left me, what your zero balance is, like where you net out. And then he kind of talks about bookkeeping generally. So it gets touched on a lot. And then when we do our milestone meetings, then we, make sure that they're organized. And if they need a resource, if they need a bookkeeper, then we give referrals and so on.
So Kevin's zero out, so I have a term that I use as well as my zero.
Yes.
Right. That's a number that affiliates with the amount of money you have in a bank. No,
this is how much you need to make in your business in order to pay for all your bills and pay yourself.
Okay. So I do it reverse.
Okay.
I've taught Natasha to do this with her business.
Yep.
And I really encourage people to do it with these grants, is set a new zero for you. So just random numbers, if if my business hits $40,000, I get stressed when I have $40,001 in the bank because I have $1 in the bank.
Okay.
So I set mine on a 6 months
Okay.
of operating expenses
Okay.
is zero.
Okay.
Because everyone could have a house for 6 months.
Right.
No one could need a haircut for 6 months.
Right.
No one could need coaching for 6 months.
Right.
Or whatever in your business is that magic number is what I've always tried to portray to people that talk to me about business.
Right.
Is zero isn't a good number to have, and overdraft is worse.
Right.
So what's your zero?
Right.
What's your I can sleep at night
Right.
knowing the apocalypse hits?
So, for some people it's 100,000 or some people it's
Oh,
200,000.
I can imagine places
Yeah.
like Canarm and
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine the payrolls.
Right.
And I was just, like I say, a random number.
And I'm sure you don't have a line of credit.
I do.
But do you keep a balance on it?
Oh, no. So when I met Natasha, well, I'm going to get in trouble. 15 years ago, I didn't have a cell phone. Mm-hmm. I'd been working since 20. Didn't have a cell phone. Didn't have a credit card.
Wow.
I think I had a little bit of student loan left.
Right.
Which would be the only loan I ever took.
Right.
And I remember when I first applied for something, I don't even know what I applied for, but they're like, you don't exist.
Right.
And what do you mean I don't? Like, I'm here, tappy, tappy, touch Dave.
Right.
He's here. And it didn't. So, but yeah, I'm every 2 weeks, I pay my credit card off.
Right.
I buy everything thanks to Darren Gallagher. He told me about these points and how to increase your credit.
Right.
I buy everything on per company credit card, but every 2 weeks I pay it off.
Okay.
Yeah. So my statement means nothing because they print the statement like 2 weeks before the deadline. The purchases aren't up to date. And Natasha's like, you don't even look at it. I'm like,
no, it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. I pay it and use it too much.
You know how I established my credit when I was 20? I left high school and I went right to work at JB Kelly Insurance. And I had no credit.
That.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I didn't want to go to college and I knew somebody there and I said, do you want to give me a job? And they said yes. And I worked in insurance for 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't have any credit. I wasn't in university, so they didn't want to give me a credit card.
Right.
Which made no sense.
You didn't get the t-shirt from Capital One. Yeah.
So I worked in Athens and I went to Dave Blanchard's garage, and I needed some repairs on my car. I said, Dave, can I pay you in 3 installments? And then it'll show up on my credit rating. He said, sure. So I paid Dave in 3 installments, and then I went and I was able to get a credit card.
Isn't that crazy? And nowadays, the new trick is give us $500. We'll give you a $500 credit card.
Right.
Like, no, you're holding my money. That's not credit. That's payment.
Right.
But it's funny because I just, I'm not one. And that's why I think SEBA bugs me so much. Mm-hmm. I have this $60,000 debt. Right. And I'm not assuming, because as much as you and I just said that it could go away and be a fully grant, it could go away and be fully due.
Right.
Like they haven't told us the game.
No.
They know there's a few check boxes we could use it for, but come on. You could just say you grabbed the cup the wrong way and now you owe it all. Right. These businesses that are banking on only paying back part of it.
Yes.
Oh, it drives me nuts. So it literally makes me ill knowing I have this.
Right.
But I couldn't say no at the time. I was closed for, I think, 3 weeks.
Right.
And then they opened up that we had a medical, the St. Lawrence Eye Center fell under medical. Right. I was able to keep going.
Okay.
But it took 3 weeks for them to realize that medical was important.
Right.
You know, so it's crazy. But so let's not talk shop to close this out. So a hobby and passion of yours would be theater.
Yeah.
Dive into that a little bit.
Sure.
Like are you center stage?
No.
Belting your lungs out?
So it was before I started working at the center. I started in 2015. So, because I'm 7 years this month. Yeah. So in 2014, I thought I'm going to try out for, the Christmas Story where Santa, the little girl and Santa, Miracle on 34th Street.
Right.
Miracle on 34th Street was being put on by the Brockville Theatre Guild. I thought I'm going to try out for that. I was only working part-time and I thought it would be a fun thing to do. And I hadn't done theater since high school.
Right.
So I had been on stage in high school for a couple of plays. And so I went and I tried out, and I had just, one or two lines. And then I was like in scene changes. I was like one of the people on the street.
Yeah.
So
like the extras.
Yeah, the extra. So I had my line, and I did a song with a group of people, and I was an extra, and had a really good time. Had a lot of fun. So that's kind of the beginning again of my theater experience. I had had singing lessons a long time ago as well. So since then, I've done Brockville Theatre Guild productions. I've actually gone into producing. So I produced A Christmas Story through the Brockville Theatre Guild. And then I've done a lot of work with the Brockville Operatic Society, helped out with a couple of productions. I've been in the concert productions From Broadway with Love and the Disney one that we did in 2017. And I'm now on the board. I'm the president of the Brockville Operatic Society this year.
There we go.
Which is really interesting because we can't do any productions right now. So I'm not really doing a lot.
So you would be the least productive president?
Yep, that's me.
It's like I used to get wrangled into the parent councils.
Yes.
And
I did those too.
yeah, it was like, don't go to the first meeting.
Right.
You're going to end up with a role. No one told me this. So I ended up president of John Bosco for the 4 or 5 years the kids were there.
Right.
Went to the St. Mary one just to check it out.
Right.
And first year got in as president there and had to stick it out.
My theory is by the time the kids hit high school, if they can't run their own meetings, then that's just too bad.
Yeah.
I'm not going there.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize that it was first come, first get elected.
Right.
So where does the Operatic Society and the Theatre Guild, where's their funding? Is it all ticket sales?
It's all private. Yeah. So we might get a donation. We had a long-term member, his parents passed away. And so we got a nice chunk of money from an estate. But yeah, it's mostly from what we would make off of a production. And since we haven't done a production in 2 years, we haven't really made any money. But we've been trying to keep people engaged. You
have to, because if they forget about you, you're starting the game. It's like your business coaching, right?
Exactly.
If you disappear for 2 years, don't complain you don't have customers.
Right. So we've been holding some online workshops, singing lessons, acting workshop. We've had a few little fundraisers. Like last spring we had people submit songs that they had done at home, produced at home, and we put together a little online concert. It was called Spring into Summer, and it was beautiful. Like it was really beautifully edited.
A lot of music in Brockville. It's crazy.
With the St. Lawrence College students, we had a lot of submissions from them. You could go onto YouTube, onto the Operatic Society's page, and still watch that. So if you're looking for, Saturday night entertainment. And also last year or 2 years ago, the BOS, Brockville Operatic Society, teamed up with My Other Love, which is the refugee work that I'm doing. And we created a concert to raise money for one of our refugees to bring her family over because they're still in Africa. So we've been doing lots of fun things, trying to, just keep the Operatic Society and the Theatre Guild in people's minds, and we're hoping that by fall that we have Little Shop of Horror scheduled to show at the Art Center,
which is October. A great production.
Yeah, it's fun.
It is.
It's fun. We did try and do Chris Griffiths and Amanda Warner.
I know Chris.
Do you know Chris?
A border guard.
Yeah.
Or was a border guard.
Yeah.
I did his audition.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Okay. So Chris Griffiths and I did A Christmas Story together. We were co-producers. And then he and Amanda Warner co-produced a BTG BOS production this last fall. And we were like this close to getting it on stage. And then staff from the BAC got sick and they didn't have anybody for load-in. So we ended up having to table it, which was super disappointing. They worked
especially
really hard.
They put I was going to say, like, how many months of...
All the people who did costumes, all the people who did sets, like, we didn't get to see any.
So do you table that to just bring it forward when you can?
Well, no, we recorded it
Okay.
as a radio show, because that was the essence of the
Well,
show
that's kinda
anyway.
cool,
It
isn't
was
it?
like the old-fashioned radio
That's
show.
what I just went to. Like, we're all in our houses
yeah.
locked down.
Right.
That's amazing that somebody hasn't went to like radio entertainment,
Right.
put us back into the 40s.
So we did record them, but it's a huge amount of editing,
Yeah.
and we're all working. And Chris, that was Chris's project that he was trying to work on. So we got one show out. We got the My Miss Brooks. I don't know whether you mean you're younger than me. So
I've watched so much theater in Toronto at Mirvish.
Right.
One of my favorites of all time is Crazy for You.
okay,
I've never laughed so hard in my life.
Right.
There's a scene where I believe he's drunk and he's mimicking, and that it's supposed to be like him looking outside of himself.
Right.
And the two actors had to mimic, and
Yeah.
it was they run these things for weeks.
right,
They were toying with each other.
Yes.
They were not
Yes.
sticking to scripts.
right. I love that stuff. I love it when they go off script.
But I've seen all the Les Mis. I went and saw Lion King when it
Right.
came through, which was absolutely phenomenal. So I've done my due diligence in
Yeah.
theater. I don't think Natasha's ever seen any.
No.
I used to. So in high school, Kelly Hallett and I,
Yes.
being in Brockville and not much to do,
Mm-hmm.
we would jump on the seniors bus at Howard Travel and like pay our tickets.
Yeah.
We'd be
And go to Toronto to see
go
a
to
show.
Toronto and the spaghetti. We'd get a show and a dinner, and then we'd come back.
That's hilarious.
And it would just be these two teenagers with a whole bunch of blue hair.
That's awesome.
It was. There was nothing else
Yeah.
to do, so we
Right.
got to see all these crazy shows
Mm-hmm.
for cheap.
Right.
And it was amazing. But I know when we saw Lion King, I sat like third row orchestra,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew appreciation for where your seat is,
Right.
Because that production was absolutely crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Just mind blowing,
Yes, absolutely.
and wasn't around enough for everyone to see it. But it's So I'm following you. I do recognize
Yeah.
a lot of this stuff.
We were really excited that the Brockville Theatre Guild got to finally show Sex Please We're 60, because they had set that up, and they were going to do a theater show at the Arts Center, or at the Country Club.
Yeah.
So it was going to be dinner theater. And then the second lockdown locked them down. And then we opened back up, and they decided, okay, well, we're going to do the production, and we're going to do it on stage, because the whole food thing was just too much to wade through. So they, just as things started opening up last October, they got to be on stage. And so I was there on closing night for Sex Please We're 60 at the
cool.
Arts Center. And then, everybody's clapping, because we're just so excited to have live theater again in Brockville. And
We tried to book the Uppity Improv for the gala.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And I spoke to Mark, and I was like,
Right.
and he was, so the question to you is it the same effect? But Mark was like, we haven't rehearsed.
Right.
So do you, I imagine you guys would be the second or third step that you'll be able to do live shows again. So you're
Correct.
talking probably February or March.
Right. But
Probably
we haven't
March.
been rehearsing.
But
so.
you can't rehearse now to
Correct.
get ready. So
Correct.
how many months to get a show kind of ironed out? Three?
Max. But we can do it in 10 weeks or 2 months,
So
depending.
2 months. So that means we're still, even if it's March, April, May. So we're June by the time we can see a production.
Yeah, the Theatre
That's
Guild.
sketchy when we're talking. We're in January right
Theatre
now.
Guild has a June week booked at the Arts Center.
That-
So we'll see if that works out. And then we have October.
I think we're going to be pretty safe for summer. Because
Yeah.
again, conspiracy theorists or not, hate me or love me, I know it's a real thing, but it's a cold.
Right.
So we tend not to catch colds in June.
Right.
I fear for September next year again.
Right.
It's just, the UK Prime Minister there, he just said that,
Oh, yes.
the big announcement on Thursday last week was they entrust the British people to do what's best for them. And they're done with mandates.
Okay.
I thought that was one of the best statements.
Okay.
Is if you keep getting hit by a bus,
Right.
stop walking in the street. The mask thing, the shield thing. I haven't had a cold in 3 years.
Right. No, neither have I.
I may keep that mask for the winters.
Right.
I don't know how we can not go with concert theater all this stuff, this culture, with prep times, and even with restaurants, we hear all the time that they're not given enough notice to buy food to get ready.
Right.
Well, if you guys need 3 months to prepare, you guys should be allowed out of the gates at January 31st so that you can be prepared for March 21st.
Right. Yeah.
It's enough to drive you nuts. The last one was the refugees.
Yes.
So I imagine that's been utterly chaotic.
Yes.
Transporting people in.
Had basically stopped.
I was going to say.
All immigration and refugee work. Which
is horrible.
It's horrible because our young woman left her husband and her baby, who was 6 months old at the time, to come to Canada in October of 2019, and they're still not here yet. So we had a 15,000 person petition presented to Parliament Hill in December, and they did start the process to bring them over. But in what would normally take 2 weeks for that to happen is still taking like 2 months. So we're not going to...
And that's probably
That's
fast.
generous.
Yeah.
So we're still waiting to hear. They haven't had their interview. Like her husband hasn't had his interview in Africa yet or anything like that. So it's torturous for her.
I couldn't imagine my 6-month-old.
She's now 3.
But you know what I mean? I couldn't imagine a young child. You take one of my kids at a younger age, you can take them now all you want as a teenager. But you take them when they're still cute and couldn't talk.
Right.
That's the key part, when they couldn't talk.
Right. So couldn't defy you.
And separate me for an hour.
Right.
Dave would get pretty irate. Mm-hmm. I couldn't imagine 2 years.
Yeah. Nazaro works full time. She's making money, sending it home. She pays board. She's doing really well here, considering
without her family.
Her family, but it's emotionally very, very difficult.
And support system around here is I'm not familiar with the refugee program around here.
So there's different.
I hear of it. Like
there's
the
different funding avenues. So she came through the BVOR, which is partial government funding, partial private funding.
Okay.
And they funded her for her first 6 months, and then we had to raise money for her second 6 months. And then at the year mark, we did not. It's almost
sponsored?
Correct.
Okay.
So we're considered a sponsor group.
Yeah.
And then at that year point, our hope is that she would be independent, and she did not have to go on OW.
That's perfect.
So, and that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
And same with Alvin.
Yeah, because they don't want to stress the system.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to bring people in, and they want to work.
Yeah.
They absolutely want to work. Like, let's get it going. Yeah. Alvin, who we brought at the same time, has a full-time job, has a car. He's totally independent. Very grateful for being here, although he doesn't like the snow.
I was going to say we've been doing the skill trades stuff that I'm starting to get into now.
Yes.
At the same time, this is the second year in a row that the Ontario government has decided to look into immigration to fix the skill trade industry during winter.
During winter, yeah.
So.
But they're on vacation during the summertime, Dave.
I'm just like. Could we not show the St. Lawrence in June?
Right.
Could we not say Ontario's beautiful when it's flowering?
Right.
Like when our provincial flower is out, that's when we should campaign.
Right.
Not when it's that color throughout the whole terrain of Ontario.
Right.
Like minus 30, and they're trying to get people from Haiti.
Right.
Come to Canada.
Right.
No.
Right.
Like, we're all good. Like, don't you people come here this time of year?
There was a report done, and I should email it to you. It was done about 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, by a university here in Ontario, and they picked Brockville as one of the cities. And basically it said if we didn't attract people, whether they be immigrants, refugees, people from other parts of this country, then we would not have a city in 15 years.
Yeah.
It was a huge eye-opener for me reading that report, because we wouldn't have the people to support, the structure that we built.
That's a weird stat, because I'll give you my experience on it. There was about, 65, let's say, kids that I went to high school with. Mm-hmm. 60 of us are here.
Wow.
And we all have families.
That's unusual.
Like, we see each other every day. Mm-hmm. And we're all here.
Right.
We all left for
Right.
I was 4 years.
Okay.
Right. I went to Belleville.
Right.
And back.
Right.
And have 5 kids.
Right.
I
think
hear
that's
that
pretty
stat
unusual.
I think it is too, but it's just, how can that be if that high number are here? And it's weird because we see now in business with us all starting to have a voice in COVID, you know, we're like, well, you know, our mayor got fired.
Right.
You know, somebody's got to step up, and it's
Right.
our generation's next. Like,
Right.
we still all think we're 20,
Right.
but we're the 45s now.
I'm 50. I just turned 50.
Yeah. I've tried to get the 60 look so I can look good when I retire at 50.
Right. Well, this happened a long time ago. I didn't even have to wait for that.
I blame the kids. They were my beard's going full out. But yeah, we're all here. We held a reunion. We've had 2 reunions. The first one, it was like, wow, everyone's like K6V, K6V, K6V.
Right.
It's like, this is crazy. And, you know, go to the superstore and it takes an extra hour because we bump into them and our kids all know each other.
Right.
And it's crazy. So it's hard. But then flip side, where I was going with this is in my architecture world, 60% of my clients are Montreal, Toronto, coming here. It's not.
They're moving here.
Oh, yeah. Hardcore.
Yeah.
Like I think Brockville, Augusta, Prescott, Leeds and Thousand Islands, Kempville, North Grenville, whatever, do a horrible job at advertising how beautiful
Yes.
the work play is here. Our living wage, I believe, is now higher than Kingston,
Oh, okay.
which is a bit scary, but I think it's because we don't have a great transit system,
Right.
right? So they're paying for cabs more than they are buses.
Right. And we've had to compete
Yeah.
on a salary level because we're now working remotely, and so we're competing with people from Texas or people from
100%.
India or people from Sweden or whatever. So we have to
Toronto
pay
and Ottawa
people.
even.
We
It's
have to
crazy.
pay people so that they can live wherever they are.
Yeah, and I think it's coming, but I think Brockville is one of those things that if people realize how awesome, like, and I'm saying Brockville as Leeds and Grenville, this area, like the Thousand Islands, the boating, the culture, the arts, like the music
We
scene here is
absolutely don't tell
crazy.
people enough about it.
No, they don't, and the amount of musicians, like when these bars open.
Yeah.
I just like, I remember my brother who's a musician.
Yep.
He was telling me he was at Finnegan's, and he was pretty much doing a dueling banjo with the band in the brewery across
Right.
the street.
Right.
And he said it was the greatest moment of his life.
That's awesome.
It's almost like the flies are on us.
Was Nathan there at the brewery?
I
that
don't.
night?
I think it was Nate and Thomas, but I'm not sure. But they had across King Street,
Yeah.
and then
That's so
their
fun.
band ended early, and the patrons at the brewery were like, "Play one more," and he's like, Ryan yelled in the microphone, "No, you didn't. You come to Finnegan's first." So they were trying to lure them across King Street. It was great. And then Nate and Thomas, and my wife threw a surprise birthday party for me and had Nate and Thomas
Oh,
play.
nice. That's awesome.
And it was amazing. Everyone loved it. I think Nate and Thomas loved it as much as I did.
They're amazing. Yeah.
We had a riot. And just the music and the culture, and I mean the Arts Center alone, I've seen numerous acts there. It's just, I just don't think they advertise enough that you
Right.
can make a decent living on par, like you said, and be done at 3:00 and catch a show with an amazing meal.
Right. And it only takes 15 minutes to cross town.
Yeah, that's so with the ministry. I'm Ministry of Housing. I'm an appointed
Yes.
member, and we're on Zoom now, and we're all talking. And I'm like, I want to go to Toronto. I want to get back to Bay Street. And they're all like, "Oh, you don't want to?" And I'm like, "Listen, it takes me 5 minutes to drive from uptown to downtown at 5:00.
Right.
I get what you hate about it, but you have more to do.
Right.
Like, let me out of here." But it's, but you're right. It's, you can literally leave work, get home, change, doll yourself up, and glamour out. Go to the mill, have a big Italian meal.
Right.
And then head over to the Arts Center for
Right.
something, or grab some pizza.
Yeah.
I hope it all comes back that way. I'm missing outdoor. I'm missing parties. I'm
Yeah.
missing gatherings. I'm
Yes.
missing social, the professional.
Yeah. The
events,
networking. Yeah. Absolutely. Me too.
all of it.
Yeah.
It was. What was it? Oh, Rob Thompson. came in the other day. I only get to see people when their kids are at the drive test,
Right.
because they know I'm here and it's winter, and they come to sit and chat. So Rob came in, and I did the whole COVID stumble where my hand was out, my fist was pumped, my high five was up. I didn't know. Rob came in sideways and just latched onto me, and I said, "This is why I love you."
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Totally see him doing
yeah. And Darren Javot, he popped in the other day, same thing. It was
Yeah.
just, it was a quick fist pump. But yeah, Rob came in just total crazy grandma hasn't seen you hug.
Right.
It was great. So, I mean, that's it in a nutshell, Jeanette. We did
was awesome.
well over an hour. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And we'll have your contact details up for everything.
Awesome.
And I can't stress enough the importance of the center in my mind, as I've been supporting you guys as much as I can. I'll continue to support you.
Yep.
I think having that small business incubator, which is what I'll call you guys, because that's the tool I see best,
Right.
is such a key. And anyone looking to get into business, it's a very scary process.
It is. Yeah.
But with the right tools and stuff behind, I just, most of us can do it.
Yeah.
And I really encourage them to reach out to you if they're thinking of it.
Thanks.
Super.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Take care. For more information on the Leeds Grenville Small Business Center, or to get in touch with Jeanette Johnston, contact 613-342-0040, extension 4470.